Here are the top stories for today, September 8, 2021. Metro Manila stays under modified enhanced community quarantine as the government defers the pilot run of granular lockdowns in the region. The Commission on Audit clarifies the government complied with auditing rules in entering deals on the purchase of essential equipment amid the pandemic. A former DBM official sheds light on the issue at a Senate hearing. Authorities seized close to 4 billion pesos worth of shabu in Zambales in what is seen as the biggest drug haul so far this year. President Rodrigo Duterte says the death of the 4 Chinese drug traffickers in the operation is justified. And faith amid COVID-19, Catholics mark virtually the Feast of the Nativity of Mary as some areas remain under a strict quarantine status. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Chua reports that the country's economic performance for 2021 and 2022 remains encouraging. During his report to President Rodrigo Duterte, Chua said he is positive that if the country achieves 4 to 5% economic growth this year, it will grow further next year and the country can go back to its pre-pandemic level. He also reports that the government was able to create 2.5 million jobs at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic before the Delta variant hit the country.
Ating economic growth sa 2021 and 2022 remain encouraging. And if we grow by 4 to 5% po this year, next year po 7 to 9%, ay makakaiwas po tayo sa mga long-term scarring effect ng pandemic at makakabalik po tayo sa pre-pandemic level by the end of 2022 or 2023. At ang totoo po, yung ating pangako na maiangat ang 6 na milyong Pilipino mula sa poverty or kahirapan ay na-achieve po natin in the year 2018, 4 years ahead of our schedule. Kasi ang una pong naisip po natin ay maabot yan by 2022. Pero dahil po sa mga reforma natin, ay 4 years ahead of schedule po tayo.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the quarantine classification in Metro Manila would only be downgraded to the General Community Quarantine Status or GCQ once it is ready for the pilot implementation of granular lockdowns. Metro Manila was supposed to be under regular GCQ starting today until the end of the month to pave the way for the implementation of localized or granular lockdowns. However, the Interagency Task Force for the Emerging Infectious Diseases extends the MECQ status in Metro Manila until September 15. IATF decided to defer the new quarantine status amid their ongoing consultations with the local government units in Metro Manila. Roque said Metro Manila will be under MECQ until September 15 or until the pilot GCQ with alert level system is implemented, whichever comes first. State auditor said Malacanang stuck to procurement rules when it entered into contracts for the purchase of COVID-19 emergency supplies last year.
During the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing on Tuesday, Commission on Audit Chief Michael Aguinaldo together with former Department of Budget and Management Procurement Service Chief Lloyd Christopher Lau and the Government Procurement Policy Board Technical Support Office Executive Director Rowena Candice Ruiz confirmed that their offices consulted with each other before the purchase of supplies during the first months of the pandemic last year.
Sa Bayanihan Act po kasi, yung Bayanihan 1, the President was empowered to actually do away with 9184 altogether. The only requirement was yung advantageous to the government yung pag-procure. So we were actually surprised that DBM and I guess the OP and in fairness to them, they decided to apply pa rin yung rules on emergency procurement that you find under 9184. Para rin merong sistema rin siguro dun sa pag-procure and to ensure accountability as well.
Republic Act 11469, also known as the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, authorizes the President to adopt and implement measures needed to respond to the crisis brought by COVID-19 as exemptions from the provisions of RA 9184 or the Government Procurement Reform Act. Senator Francis Tolentino said the consultation before the purchases participated in by COA was a caution against lapses in procedure.
So in effect, Chairman, nag-iingat din sila. They're aware of the existence of Republic Act 9184. They're aware of the consequences if they make some missteps relative to Bayanihan 1.
Aguinaldo also clarified that the findings of the auditing team pertain to the inventory management and not the alleged overpricing of the medical supplies.
Findings of the audit team that handles PSDBM really pertained more to inventory management and not the overpricing. Kasi ang nangyari po, I think you were flashing the figures earlier. You had purchases of, for example, yung face masks, anywhere from 13 pesos to 27 pesos. And they procured quite a bit, and I think someone mentioned earlier na yung hindi nga natuloy yung ibang deliveries because of inventory and warehousing space, no? The problem was, hindi po na-dispose kasi a lot of this equipment right away, so that nung dumating po yung September and the prices went down, yung mga regional offices and hospitals ng DOH ayaw nang bumili or kumuha from PSDBM kasi mahal. And now they're faced with a problem with a lot of stock that no one wants to get because it's expensive. And so mapipilitan ang PSDBM to dispose of them at a discount. Yun po yung main observation doon.
Meanwhile, Lau said his office undertook measures to protect the government's interest even while working under pressure to procure the supplies. He also said the PSDBM awarded the contract to EMS but it could only supply face masks by June 2020. Since there was no supply of personal protective equipment sets in the first few months of the pandemic, Lau said the government reached out to China using diplomatic channels.
I'd like to explain to the public para malaman nila, Pharmally did not supply PPEs or these items to PSDBM outright. Kasi walang supply nun. And China responded. Kaya ang nag-supply sa atin, mga foreign companies first. Then later on, saka pumasok si Pharmally. So it's a series of events.
For his part, Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said the purchase of personal protective equipment last year for 1,470 pesos to 1,980 pesos each involved a different and more complete set as compared to the more expensive PPE acquired in 2015 and 2016 for around 3,000 pesos. He said the pricier 2015 and 2016 purchases did not have face shields and aprons.
Ang price range po na nabili is about 1,470 to about 1,980 pesos per PPE set. Mahirap pong sabihin na may overpriced noon kasi iba-ibang panahon, iba-iba ang supply chain adequacy. So, masasabi lang namin na sa panahon na iyon, yun lang ho yung presyo. At kung ito ba ay overpriced, ay kinakailangan magkaroon kami ng ebidensya para sabihin na ito nga ay overpriced. At bukod doon, ang COA, wala din naman silang findings. Tinignan namin na nagsasabi na ito ay overpriced. Salamat po.
Meanwhile, Senator Ronald De La Rosa said the government was subject to the forces of the law of supply and demand when it was acquiring PPE during the initial stages of the pandemic. He also stressed that President Rodrigo Duterte won't tolerate any form of corruption in the government.
In fairness kay President Duterte, I've known him for 35 years. At alam ko, kapag isang tao niya ma-involve sa corruption, hindi yan tatagal. Tanggal kaagad yan.
Lau meanwhile clarified that Senator Christopher Bongo did not give him any instruction to give preference to Pharmally.
Bigyan ka ba ng instruction ni Senator Bongo na paboran ang Pharmally?
No, sir. No, sir.
Wala. For the record. Ha?
ATF and NTF.
Oh, another question. Meron bang nakinabang dito sa transaction with Pharmally? Meron bang nakatanggap ng kickback, nakatanggap ng commission?
No, sir. No, sir.
Ikaw, tanongin kita, na may natanggap ka ba? Wala.
Wala po sir, these are all legitimate transactions. Multiple companies po sila lahat.
For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Benj Bondo.
Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque says the Commission on Audit can conduct a special audit of the Philippine Red Cross spending. This after President Rodrigo Duterte earlier asked COA to conduct an audit of PRC, which is a non-government organization.
Nakasulat po sa Article 9 ng ating saligang batas na ang COA ay may kapangyarihang magsagawa ng post-audit basis sa lahat ng accounts pertaining to expenditure or uses of funds by such non-government entities receiving subsidy or equity directly or indirectly from or through the government. Bukod pa po dito, nasa Republic Act No. 10072 or ang Philippine Red Cross Act of 2009 na ang Philippine Red Cross shall, at the end of every calendar year, submit to the President of the Philippines an annual report containing its activities and showing its financial condition. Dagdag pa ng nasabing batas, ang Presidente ng Pilipinas ang siyang honorary President ng Philippine Red Cross.
Roque also questioned the Philippine Red Cross for imposing its rate of 3,500 pesos per COVID-19 test, even if the machines used for the testing are donated.
3,500 pesos po ang testing na sinisingil ng PRC. Ito ay mas mataas sa 2,077 pesos na dapat nilang tanggapin kung ang mga kagamitan ay galing sa donasyon. Kaya kinakailangan natin malaman lahat ba ng mga makina ay donated, ilan ang donated, at magkanong siningil. Yan po ang dapat na-cover ng audit.
The Philippines is ready and just waiting for the go signal for the conduct of Solidarity vaccine trial. DOST Undersecretary Rowena Cristina Guevara said they are just waiting for the formal announcement of the World Health Organization.
Ay patuloy po ang ating paghahanda para sa WHO Solidarity Trial for Vaccines. Dahil po sa dami ng mga applicants sa clinical trials dito sa ating bansa, nag-propose po ang aming task group at inaprubahan naman po ng IATF na ang tatanggapin nating COVID-19 clinical trials na dadaan sa Task Group on Vaccine Evaluation and Selection ay yung mga Phase 3 clinical trial para sa mga pediatric age groups na 6 months hanggang 12 years old, para sa elderly, yung more than 60 years old, para sa pregnant mothers, para sa mga pasyente na may immunodeficiency katulad po ng HIV, cancer, post-transplant recipients, at yung para po sa mga pasyente na may autoimmune diseases, at yung mga pasyente na may renal disorders, at yung mga pasyenteng may chronic respiratory diseases po.
The Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, is set to launch its eVaccert PH portal next month. The portal would be the country's digital documentation system that would handle the issuance of COVID-19 vaccination certificates. DICT Undersecretary Manny Caintic said the Philippines is one of the first countries to develop a World Health Organization compliant vaccination data system. A vaccination certificate issued through VacCert PH would contain an individual's personal information, vaccination data from the Vaccine Information Management System database, and protected with a QR verification system in addition to other security measures.
Ang VacCert PH, hindi po siya app. Isa po siyang portal para pwedeng puntahan ng tao para makuha ang kanyang patunay. Para siyang birth certificate or NBI clearance. Ang VacCert PH po ay gagamitin kasabay ng yellow card na ini-issue ng Bureau of Quarantine. Kinikilala po sa ibang bansa, lalo na para sa mga sakit tulad ng yellow fever at iba pang mga sakit.
Still to come, no let-up, law enforcers seized almost 4 billion worth of shabu in an operation in Zambales, resulting in the death of 4 Chinese drug traffickers. And the country logs the lowest unemployment rate since the start of the pandemic. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
You are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective.
I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. President Rodrigo Duterte commended the anti-drug operatives for the seizure of the 3.4 billion pesos worth of shabu, which is so far the biggest drug haul this year. The buy-bust operation in Zambales resulted in the death of 4 Chinese nationals.
Talagang galit na galit ako sa droga. It has corrupted not only our young people, it has corrupted even policemen and mga generals pa. But this time, to the credit of our security forces, at ito naman ang kanilang accomplishment. So, at this early, I would like to extend my highest commendation and my heartfelt gratitude for protecting the country against the destruction of drugs.
President Rodrigo Duterte has defended the anti-drug operatives who conducted a buy-bust operation in Zambales that resulted in the death of 4 Chinese nationals. The president said law enforcement authorities had no choice but to kill the armed Chinese nationals who are alleged members of a drug syndicate.
May namatay ho. Hindi mo natin gustong mangyari ito, pero medyo arbado kasi. At sinasabi ko naman sa inyo, ng itong lahat itong mga big time talaga, may armas.
Chinese drug personalities Gao Manchu, Hong Jianse, and Eddie Tan, who are all from Fujian, China, as well as Xu Yuha from Quezon City, were killed during the said operation. The anti-drug operation was a result of long surveillance on Su, who is tagged as among the key players of illegal drug activities in the country. A total of 500 kilograms of shabu worth 3.4 billion pesos were recovered from the suspects. The seized 500 kilograms of shabu are believed to be for distribution in various parts of Luzon.
So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the loss of lives. Hindi mo natin ginusto yan. But I just hope that the countries from where these guys come from should understand that we have laws to follow. Hindi mo natin gustong makipag-away o kaya saktan yung mga citizens ng ibang bayan na kababayan natin. Pero we have to do this because we have to protect our country. Simple as that.
President Duterte also assured the other nations that he would not meddle if they arrest overseas Filipinos with drug links.
Kayong mga Pilipino, sabihin ko sa inyo, pag nasabit kayo sa droga sa labas, hindi ako makialam.
The president also lauded the conduct of anti-drug operation in Bataan on Tuesday, which led to the confiscation of 80 kilos of shabu worth 544 million pesos. Members of Liga Independencia Pilipinas, League of Parents of the Philippines, and Yakap ng Magulang staged a picket rally today in front of the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Makati City. The groups renewed their call to extradite the Communist Party of the Philippines founding chair Jose Maria Sison. The groups insisted that the Dutch government should stop coddling Sison along with his comrades and let them face the raps filed against them in the Philippines. They said they had sent a demand letter to the Dutch government to remove Sison's asylum status, but it remained mum to their call. The protesters burned the tarpaulins with faces of Sison and Dutch King Willem Alexander. Malacanang said Philippine offshore gaming operators that are also tax evaders will not be allowed to operate amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said POGOs must settle their tax debts with the government first before they can resume their operations. Roque issued the statement after Senator Risa Ontiveros on Monday urged the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation to collect the outstanding debt of POGOs. Citing a recent report from the Commission on Audit, or COA, Ontiveros said at least 15 POGOs have a total debt of 1.365 billion pesos. 3 of these tax-delinquent POGOs were still functioning as of January 2021. Roque said the palace would verify Ontiveros' claim before taking proper actions against the tax-evading POGOs. In May this year, Duterte allowed the partial resumption of POGOs to augment the government's COVID-19 response funds. The government will set the standard in reporting its accomplishments and messages to the people through the Duterte Legacy campaign. The administration hopes to instill in the public's minds what the government is doing to help Filipinos amid the pandemic. Chris Crismundo has the story.
The Duterte Legacy campaign is now a new norm in informing the public of what the government is doing for the people. Communications Secretary Martin Andanar said reporting the Duterte administration's legacy is not only done during the State of the Nation address, nor is it just about the accomplishments of one agency. He mentioned that the Presidential Communications Operations Office is in full force in setting the standard on how things should be done in communications campaigns. Andanar said the good relationship of the PCOO and kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas helped a lot in airing the Laging Handa crisis communications on TV and radio. These campaigns inform the public of the government's actions and response during the pandemic. Andanar urged all Filipinos to support the Duterte administration in its remaining 10 months as the president makes the roadmap on how the country will recover from the damage of the onslaught of COVID-19. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Moving on to business, the Philippines recorded its lowest unemployment rate since April 2020 at 6.9% in July this year. The Philippine Statistics Authority reported that the unemployment rate in July 2021 declined from 7.7% in June 2021. Economic managers attributed the lower unemployment rate in July to the easing of community quarantine restrictions. However, 3.4 million jobs were shed from the labor market between June and July. Meanwhile, underemployment increased to 20.9% in July from 14.2% in June, the highest since April 2020. With the imposition of granular lockdowns in Metro Manila, economic managers hope that it will better target high-risk areas to curb the spread of COVID-19 while bringing back jobs due to restrictions. The Department of Trade and Industry has urged Japanese firms to invest in the Philippines as opportunities remain high despite the pandemic. In a virtual meeting, DTI Secretary Ramon Lopez said Japanese investors may look into opportunities in the production of semiconductor and electronic goods, as well as manufacturing of medical devices. With the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lopez said the country needs to build more healthcare facilities. He said they likewise have a big market to tap in the domestic construction sector, primarily driven by the government's Build, Build, Build infrastructure program. Lopez further said there is also growing demand in the transport and power sectors. In the first quarter of the year, Japan was the top source of investment pledges in investment promotion agencies, amounting to $215 million. Up next, IP members in Talaingod, Davao del Norte sign up for the national ID. And Catholics mark the Feast of the Nativity of Mary. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. A newly formed women's group called on their fellow Filipino women to lead the way in keeping their families intact as communist terrorist groups try to destroy them. Magdalena Mission Alagang Ate is composed of empowered women who formed the group amid the pandemic to protect human rights and advance women's welfare. Journalist Pia Morato said the family, as the most basic unit of society, is under attack from insurgents. Morato also said teachers should be partners of families in protecting schools where recruitments and attacks happen. Beauty queen and volleyball player Michelle Gumabao, another convener, said their group will look into the plight of women involved in prostitution. She said Magdalena Mission Alagang Ate supports the police, government, and the National Task Force to end local communist armed conflict in addressing the problems of women so they will not be influenced, brainwashed, and taken advantage of. Members of an indigenous peoples community in Talaingod, Davao del Norte finished the Step 2 registration for the Philippine Identification System, or PhilSys. Philippine Statistics Authority personnel facilitated the biometrics process in Sitio Lumabag, Barangay Palmahil on August 26 to 28. The revitalized Pulisa Barangay, or RPSB, who provided security and assistance, shared that around 80 IP children signed up on the third day of registration. It said the activity showed active partnership among government agencies in delivering basic services to the IP community. PhilSys Step 2 involves verification of demographic information and recording of biometrics. By the end of 2022, the governor hopes to register up to 70 million Filipinos and resident aliens for PhilSys.
Ang aming commitment ay matapos po ang 50 million registration this year. At sana po ay tuloy-tuloy rin bago matapos ang inyong termino ang ma-register ang iba't ang iba pang mga Pilipino.
In continued efforts to rehabilitate Marawi City, at least 100 internally displaced persons in Marawi received their cash for work payout from the International Committee of the Red Cross, who commissioned to have the IDPs shelters repaired. More on this from Gerdighe.
The International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, released yesterday the payout of 100 internally displaced persons, or IDPs, who are beneficiaries of its Cash for Work project. The IDPs are sheltered in 50 bamboo houses of Bahay Pag-asa, or House of Hope, in Bitubuade, Itoa, a transitional shelter funded and constructed by the Tarlac Heritage Foundation in the year 2018. Such bamboo houses have deteriorated over time due to the wet weather condition in the city. With this, the ICRC came up with a project to repair the roofs, walls, and flooring of the bamboo houses through a Cash for Work scheme, commissioning IDPs providing labor.
So bawat skilled is merong 400 pesos per day in 10 days. Then the unskilled is 300 pesos in 10 days as well. Itong Cash for Work na to is a temporary employment for the IDPs in Bito transitional shelters. So at least meron silang mapagkunan ng income, nagkakaroon din sila ng short period ng income while they are doing the Cash for Work.
Ruaya further said that the transaction code was sent directly to the IDP beneficiaries, which they can claim at any Palawan Express Pera Padala nearest them. ICRC provided the materials, which included nipa roof sheets, shade net, and woven split bamboo mats, as well as the needed construction tools for the repair. With the ICRC's efforts of revamping their temporary units, IDPs extended their thanks for the big help the project have contributed.
Hindi ko mabuberan. Maraming salamat talaga sa ICRC. Yan lang pinagsasalamatan ko na NGO.
For PNA Newsroom, Claire Gighe of the Philippine Information Agency Ligan City Information Center.
A local women's group will benefit from an eco park in northern Samar that reopened early this September. The La Laguna Mangrove Eco Park in Zambales, northern Samar, was reopened to domestic tourists last September 1 after over a year of closure due to the pandemic. The Provincial Tourism Office said that the Women's Association for Inter-Island Development of San Isidro Village in Zambales will benefit from this reopening. The office said that the reopening of the LMEP not only provides livelihood but also aims to promote environmental protection and management. A maximum of 100 visitors per day are allowed to visit the site. The tourists are required to do early bookings or reservations. The Manila Cathedral celebrated the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary today via virtual masses. This came as Metro Manila remained under MECQ until September 15. The cathedral canceled plans to hold masses late Tuesday night after the government revoked its earlier declaration that NCR will be under GCQ starting September 8. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said that under MECQ, religious services may only be performed through online video recordings and streaming. The Catholic faithful celebrates the Feast of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary on September 8 of every year. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. Metro Manila stays under modified enhanced community quarantine as the government defers the pilot run of granular lockdowns in the region. The Commission on Audit clarifies the government complied with auditing rules in entering deals on the purchase of essential equipment amid the pandemic. A former DBM official sheds light on the issue at a Senate hearing. Authorities seized close to 4 billion pesos worth of shabu in Zambales in what is seen as the biggest drug haul so far this year. President Rodrigo Duterte says the death of the 4 Chinese drug traffickers in the operation is justified. And faith amid COVID-19, Catholics mark virtually the Feast of the Nativity of Mary as some areas remain under a strict quarantine status. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear your face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for all these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe and stay dry, everyone.